Welcome to Boss Up Talk. I am Tee Westbrook, founder of Cool Girls Create. And today I'm sitting here with Dr. Ava. Dr. Ava, tell us a little bit about yourself and your story.
Okay, so I am Dr. Ava. I'm an internal medicine hospitalist, and that's a doctor who is mainly in the hospital setting only. I only see adult medicine. I'm married. I have 3 kids, ages 12, 9, and 7. I wrote a book recently called Paging Dr. You, and I'm also the co-owner of Dramatically Real, which is a lipstick company.
Right, so you do a multitude of things. So before we dig into all of that, talk to us a little bit about your journey to becoming a doctor. What was the spark that made you want to become a doctor in the first place?
So both of my parents are physicians. My dad was a radiologist. My mother was a dermatologist. And growing up in a household where you have both parents as doctors and they both have their own practices, they used to take me to work sometimes. And just seeing my parents, changing the lives of other people, helping other people out, always made me want to be like them. I looked at them as my heroes. And ever since I was a little girl, I wanted to be a doctor and I never changed my mind. So here I am today.
Right. Oh my gosh. So that's amazing. So there are a couple of things that stand out to me. One, that both of your parents had an entrepreneurial spirit. So that probably helped you out early on, and we'll get into that later. But 2, let's talk a little bit about how long it took you to matriculate and become a doctor. What was your journey like? What were the steps that you took for that?
So pretty much, it's 4 years of undergrad, and then you have 4 years of medical school, and then you have at least 3 years of residency. Some residencies take even longer than that. So you're looking at a total of at least 11 years.
Right.
For me, leaving high school, I started undergrad and I finished it in 3 years instead of 4 years because I was going to school every single summer school, which allowed me to take credits, and I was able to save a year. Not a lot of people could do that. So my journey took me approximately 10 years instead of 11 years.
Okay. So what were some of the challenges that you faced on your journey? Talk about that.
Moving from Haiti to the States, I was 15 when I moved, having to learn English. I mean, I knew English a little bit, but I wasn't that good at learning English. So having to learn a new language, a new culture, things were being done differently. It was a huge challenge at the beginning. But I adjusted, I adapt. You have to be able to adjust and adapt to situations all the time in order to move forward. So fortunately, I was able to do that. And I'm still adjusting and adapting to things, because I am from Haiti. I grew up there. Most of my family's still there. But that was very helpful.
Okay. The next question that I have for you is related to the book that you wrote. What made you decide to write a book in the first place? I know it was focused or tailored to, college students who might be interested in becoming a doctor. So was this like a roadmap that you wanted to give? Or what prompted you to want to write that book?
So I wrote the book as a guide to help kids from high school on, or even starting in middle school, if they really know what they want to do, to help them on their journey to becoming a doctor. Going through my journey and realizing the roadblocks, it's a lot of, I want to put in the right words. I feel like the system is meant to fail us.
Let's talk about it.
Yeah. And that's why there's not a lot of Black doctors out there. And going through that journey, I started realizing, well, there's a problem. Why is it that only 5%, and we're talking about 2.5% Black men and 2.5% Black women, so approximately 5% of doctors are Black? There's something wrong. Like, why is that happening? So I wanted to write a guide for all students, but mainly minority students, to tell them that if I could do it and I went through the journey, so can you. And this is
Right.
what you need to do from the beginning to the end. This is how you need to set yourself up so that you can become a doctor.
Right.
So it talks about, and it's simple things that to me or to other people could be common sense, but to them, they have no clue because no one is trying to teach them. No one is trying to tell them.
Right.
And sometimes it's on purpose, and it's things like make sure you study and pass your exams, or make sure you start building your credit very early on because it's very expensive and not a lot of people can afford it. I mean, I had to take student loans,
Right.
make sure you volunteer, make sure you don't do nothing crazy on social media because it can follow you along the way and you might regret it. So it's little things like that, taking the right classes, when to ask for letters of recommendations, when to start volunteering, to add things to your CV. So it's little things that add up and make you a successful candidate when you're ready to apply to undergrad or even to med school.
Gotcha. Earlier, you talked about some of the hardships. Like it seems like, well, it doesn't seem like the system is set up for us to fail. But can you give some examples of situations where it felt like, this is really difficult, or this really seems like the system is right here, like you're not going to be able to move forward?
Well, I had a few instances in undergrad, for example, where my own counselors would tell me, this is not for you. You're not going to pass this class, or you're not having a good grade or an excellent grade. You're not going to make it to med school. Like they give you subliminals. They tell you little things like that. And as somebody who is trying to make it, but then you're not sure if the system is even going to allow you to make it, you're listening to these people that you're supposed to be looking up to, that are supposed to be giving you good advice, that you're trusting as a kid in college, as a young adult. But then they're not encouraging you. They're not pushing you. They're actually bringing you down with little subliminals and little things that make you doubt yourself. So I went through that a couple of times. If I didn't have people in my corner that were telling me, don't listen to them, you could do it, push through, you got this, like my parents or, some of my really good friends. If I didn't have people like that in my corner, I probably would have quit.
No, and now that's very relatable when it comes to, I don't know if it's a Black thing, but I will say that, so I went to an HBCU. I graduated from high school that was in the inner city. And I went to school for accounting. So there aren't a lot of Black women in my field in finance and accounting. But what I did find was, one, as a first generation college student, there were so many things that I just didn't know. So like you said, it's so important to have somebody in your corner, whether that's family or mentors or, close friends, that give you that positive reinforcement when, your professor or the guidance counselor who's supposed to be guiding you is like, this isn't going to work.
Right.
But that's very common. So I think that that's an important point to touch on. It's so important to have a great support system, but also don't believe in a lot of the naysaying that goes along when you're trying to accomplish something that may seem impossible to everyone else.
Right. And a lot of people think that in order for you to go to med school, you have to have the best GPA, you have to have A+ in everything and the best grades. And that's not true. That is not true.
Really?
Yeah, no, it's not. I mean, I don't consider myself the smartest, but I did put in the work. I was reading and studying and asking questions, and then surrounding myself with people that were like-minded, people that were really, really wanting to be doctors, and people that were passionate about it. So just seeing them motivated me even more. And even if I didn't have a good grade, I could go to them and ask them. If I didn't understand something, I can ask them to explain it to me, and vice versa. So having that support system was very important. But the GPA is not the only thing they look at. It's a combination of things,
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
It's your personality, it's your letters of recommendations, it's your personal statement, it's your MCAT score. It's a lot of things. So a lot of times the counselors will look at this one grade or two grades and tell you
They
that,
see your whole life story from those 2 grades. Like,
right, like you don't have it in you. You're not going to be able to make it. And that's not true. So I always tell people to follow your heart. If this is what you really want to do and
hmm
this is what God wants for you, there's
right.
nothing
Talk
else
about
nobody else can tell you,
it.
you
Exactly.
know? So we kind of have to change the system and allow or find a way to make a path for more students of color to be
hmm
doctors. We need that representation. And now we can tell the impact of the lack of representation. So how do
Right.
we make sure we change things? And that's the reason why I wrote the book. So hopefully I can help young kids know that this is very possible and very doable.
Right. This brings me to a great point when it comes to Black women's health. So one of the things, I just turned 30 this year. So I am, uh, what's the word? I don't know. I'm not really like self-conscious about like what's going on with my body, but I'm more aware
Mhm.
of, my health. And one of the things that comes up is like you talked about lack of representation, but there is a quiet storm when it comes to Black women um, either dying on the operating table, having higher mortality rates when it comes to giving birth, or not having the right diagnosis when you're going to the doctor and you're like, hey, something's wrong with me. A lot of times they're like, no, it's not. So my question to you, or more so of a statement, is what are some ways, like as a Black woman, how can I find doctors like you or other Black doctors that can help me, along my journey as a woman? Because a lot of times it's hard. And not only are we, underrepresented, but it's hard to find you all so that we can go and see you and get the right information for ourselves.
Yeah, I mean, when you think about only 2.5% of doctors all over the US are Black female,
Wow.
that's really hard. That's a very, very, very small number.
hmm
So, depending on where you are, you may not even ever see a Black doctor ever. You know what I mean? Like, I'm in the Atlanta area, and I know it's very unusual, but in Atlanta, you're going to see a lot of Black doctors at the hospital. Even me, like, I
Wow.
see Black cardiologists, Black nephrologists, Black everything.
That's
But that's,
dope.
yeah, very dope. But that's very unusual. It's impossible for you not to have all Black doctors in Atlanta. If you want to have all your doctors be Black, that's very possible. Every
So
single
basically, I got to move
specialty.
to Atlanta because I'm here in Nashville and we are on the search, honey. We are looking for Black doctors.
Yeah,
So,
some places are not as fortunate to have that many options.
hmm
But I know there are other doctors too that will take the time to listen to you and hear what you have to say and really hear you and give you the right advice. So I would probably recommend that you take your time when you start looking for a doctor, especially in your area, since you're not going to be able to find a Black doctor so readily and so easily. Make phone calls, read reviews. Sometimes you have to make that appointment and go and speak to them and feel the vibe and see how it is and see if they listen to you. It's a
right,
process. It takes time, but just like any relationship, it takes time for you to get to know that person. So you have to get to know your doctor. They have to get to know you
right.
and build that relationship over time so that they know you, so that
Mhm.
the minute you have a problem, you have somebody to call and they know exactly, you know, what you need.
Versus, saying, well, it's nothing, or we don't really know what's wrong with you. I think as I'm not sure. Well, I wasn't that great in my 20s about taking care of my health. And this can take us to another part of the conversation. Talking about self-care and women's health in general, especially as a multifaceted woman. So someone who has multiple businesses and who's married or may have children. What are some ways, from your perspective, that we can just generally take better care of ourselves as we maneuver through all of these things that we have to be responsible for.
Right, right. So Black women in general always feel the pressure of having to take care of everything. You know, you feel like you have to take care of your family, take care of your business. We take care of everybody and everything, and we always forget about ourselves. We always put ourselves last, and that's something I had to learn recently. And by recently, within the last 5 years. I mean, I used to bend backwards for everybody around me and never do anything for me. And then one day I woke up and realized, like, why am I doing that? I'm not going to be able to take care of my kids, take care of my household, or even take care of my business if I don't take care of my health first. You know, emotionally, mentally, physically, you
Right.
have to put yourself first and listen to your body. Your body will let you know when it's time to, break free, when it's time to
Let
take
me
a
tell
break.
you something. My body has sat me down a couple of times. Like, you're not gonna be able to do it today. You can't get up today. And it's just amazing that as a woman, I have to I'm waiting until my body is physically telling me you need to take a break versus me taking that time for myself, every weekly
Mhm.
or daily or whatever my routine is. But it's just amazing that women are able to do that.
Yeah,
Um
it's crazy. We're able to do it all. Literally, we're able to
exactly.
do it all.
So do you have any tips as far as like a self-care regimen when it comes to balancing so many things? Do you have any tips about that? Even if it's related to, time management or getting a little moment for yourself. I saw this video recently, or like this little video on Instagram, and this mom, she was pouring her like some wine and stuff and got her like a little snack, and she got in the dryer.
I saw that too.
I was like,
I
okay, they
saw that
not gonna
too.
know. They not gonna
I'm still trying to learn the balance, trying to figure out how to balance it all. And people ask me that question all the time. How do you balance it all? I don't. I'm still trying to figure it out. It's what is the hardest is that mom guilt. I have that mommy guilt. Every time I'm trying to do something for me, I'm feeling guilty, and I'm having to learn to reprogram my brain to tell myself, no, you don't have to be guilty. The kids will be fine. You need to care for yourself. So I started reprogramming my brain little by little by little. I mean, I still feel that guilt, but it's not as heavy as it used to be.
Right.
So something that's very important to me is going to the gym. I don't like going to the gym, but I know it does good for me. It's good for my body. It's good for my health, my mental health.
Right.
So I take the time at least 3 to 4 days a week, 1 hour to go to the gym no matter what happens. I have to clear my schedule. Another thing I learned to do was I have a calendar, and on my calendar, it's all types of stuff, kids stuff, school stuff, doctor's appointments, my pets on my calendar. When the cleaning lady needs to come. I mean, when the fish tank guy needs to come. It's so many things on the calendar, but I never put myself on the calendar. So I started doing that. I started, just like I'm putting the kids on the calendar, they have a doctor's appointment, they have a soccer game, they have a teacher conference, they have all of the pets need to go to the vet for their shots, like whatever
Right.
it is. I'm putting myself on the calendar too. Today, I'm getting my nails done for an hour. Next week, I'm gonna get my braids done for 2-3 hours. Like, you have to block some time to put yourself on the calendar, because why is everybody else on your calendar
We
and
gotta
not
pencil
you?
ourselves in.
So that was very, very helpful to making sure I plug in the time for me, and making sure that if something else came up, I wasn't going to say, well, I have this time. I can remove myself and I was like, no, it's on the calendar, because I wouldn't cancel my doctor's appointment for my kid's doctor's appointment for something that came up. No, my kid has a doctor's appointment. So why should I do that for me? So that's another thing I started doing, plugging myself into the calendar.
That's a great tip. I'm gonna utilize that one ASAP.
Yeah, that's important.
It's like an afterthought. And one of the things you mentioned was like the mommy guilt. So I don't have children. I have like my dog, but I can relate to the guilt thing when it comes to, for me, I feel guilty when I'm not working.
Mm.
So it's not like I don't have children, but I feel as if I should be working. I feel as if I'm not, then, and I'm not, and I haven't reached the goals that I want to reach, or these, you know, I'm an overachiever. So whatever goal or, goal line that I have, if I'm sitting still, I'm like, oh, I should be doing something. Oh, I should be doing something. And so you mentioned, reprogramming the way that you think. And I
Right.
think that's an important as well, just making sure that you are constantly elevating your mindset to be healthy
Mm-hmm.
overall. So
Mm-hmm.
that's a great tip.
Mm-hmm. And taking the time to smell the roses. You don't always have to be working. You don't always have to feel like you're missing out on something if you're taking a little bit of time out for you. You have to take the time
It's
to
so
smell the
hard.
roses. Like, we're so used to going and going and going and going. Next thing you know, the time is passing by and you're
Uh-huh.
looking back and you're like, man, all this time went by and I never took the time to enjoy everything that I've accomplished.
Exactly. And so when I was younger, and not that much younger, maybe like even like a year or two ago, I, people say, success is not a destination, it's a journey. That didn't register to me until like recently. Like, um, the journey is, taking in all of those moments and being present, and just being able to enjoy the point in your life where you are, wherever
Mm-hmm.
you are. And
Mm-hmm.
so if you never take the time to do that, by the time you get to whatever you think is success, because for people like, well, I think a lot of Black women are overachievers, so we're always looking for the next thing to
Exactly. That's what I was gonna say next. You get to your successful goal and then you're like, wait a minute, nah, let me go. And then you never take the time to breathe and smell the
accomplish.
roses. And that's how you get burnt out.
Exactly. Well, let's talk about burnout, because um I used to do it. I used to burn myself out so much, even in college. I'm pretty sure you can relate to that, burning yourself out in college, and then, now as an adult with all the things you have going on. Do you have any tips for that on how to avoid it? Um, I I just wake up one day and my body's like, nope, you burnt out. Like, are
Yeah,
there any like signs or signals that, that your body may be telling you, or, things that
there's,
you should keep in your mind?
there's
What?
always a sign. And I'm sure when that happens to you, you waited too long for that. I'm sure if you look back a couple days before, a week before, your body was telling you something and you chose to just ignore it and brush it off.
Mm-hmm.
So it's all about being in tune with you, who you are, um, recognizing those little signs that your body is telling you, or that your mind is telling you, and not ignoring it. And then purposely giving yourself a day, at least a week, purposely, where you're not doing any work, anything that's stressful. You're doing something fun,
Mm-hmm.
whatever that means to you, whether that's watching TV, whether that's reading a book, whether that's going to the spa, whether that's, hanging out with a couple girlfriends. Well, now with COVID, you can't do that as often, but, or
You
as
can.
much, but whether that's like, going to the gym, something like that. You have to turn off the stressful stuff, turn off work, and then
Right.
purposely doing something to relax your mental and relax your body so that
Right.
you can keep going and keep going and keep being more productive and more successful without having to burn out.
Exactly. Exactly. I have one more question for you before we wrap this up. And it's about more so being a woman who has multiple endeavors. So for you, like, you have, your full-time career as a doctor, but you also have the book that you wrote, you have the makeup. And so what is your experience so far with managing, different businesses? Like, Do you have a technique for that? Like, what's your day like? How do you maneuver?
Wow. So,
I'm asking this for me because this is for me.
so, I think people see me and think that everything I've done, I've accomplished overnight, just like that. It doesn't work like that. It took time to get to where I am today. And in order to be successful at anything, I think you should do one thing at a time. Start with one thing, make it work, figure it out, establish that. Once that's done, then maybe you can move on to the next step and do something else. So that's what I did. I wrote the book and I was focusing on the book for a minute. Now the book is out there. Now I can move on to the next thing. So one thing at a time, because if you have your hands in too many things, you're not able to do anything perfectly, or you can't have everything done right when your hands is in too many things. So you're having so many projects that are half done, incomplete, and not properly developed because you're pulling yourself in so many directions. So doing one thing at a time, I think, in my opinion, helps you build everything better. And as far as how I'm able to manage it, I mean, my work schedule is usually 7 on, 7 off. What that means is I work 7 days straight and then I have 7 days off. So obviously the 7 days that I'm off, I'm catching up on emails. I'm catching up on, messages. I'm doing a lot of things for my business. I'm, catching up on a lot of things for the house. I'm going to the bank. So that 7 days is really life-saving for me in order to keep up. And in the 7 days that I'm working, I'm waking up super early, 4:30 in the morning. I'm at work by 5:30 because I'm finding that during that time, I'm able to focus more. The hospital is more quiet. It's not a lot of commotion. I don't have a lot of colleagues, so I can focus and finish my work a lot sooner. So half the time I'm halfway done when everybody else is trickling in. And so I'm able to finish sooner and accomplish everything sooner, handle my phone calls. By 2 or 3 p.m., I'm done. And then the kids don't get home until 4:30 or 5. So that gives me an additional 2 hours alone to where I don't have the kids and I'm able to do a little bit of business stuff or a little bit of phone calls, or, I'm not letting it pile up too much. So sometimes, I figured out that that's what works for me. But I think waking up early in the morning is definitely helpful, at least,
Sure.
Every once in a while, because you have that quietness. You can focus on some things while everybody else is still sleeping. And by the time you accomplish half stuff, that's when everybody else is waking up and doing what they're doing and you're almost done. Another thing that I do is I pretty much have a to-do list and I have it on my phone.
Yes.
Every time I think of something, I add it to my to-do list. Every time I think of something, I'm adding. And my to-do list is usually very long by the end of the week. But I prioritize. What's most important goes to the top. What's least important goes to the bottom. And then if I don't get to the bottom, then I don't get to the bottom. It's going to have to wait till the next day. It is what it is. It's going to get done. It just may not get done today. So I prioritize what's most important, what needs to be done now. And I focus on that. And then I move on to the next thing so that I don't overwhelm myself trying to do too many things at the same time.
Right. The to-do list, so I have a to-do list and it is always, I have a Google phone. So I use mine on Keep. It's like a checklist that has like the little marks. So when you accomplish something, it like scratches it off. But to-do list for me sometimes get me a little bit stressed because I have a habit of like constantly like going back to look at it. And the longer that it gets, I'm like, oh my gosh. I'm always just thinking about so many things. So, but the to-do list is definitely great. And then, like you said, just finding your optimal time to be productive. Some people, it's really early in the morning. Some people are nocturnal, so it's really late at night. I am a creative and a businesswoman, so it's like I have to find that balance. I'm used to being up early in the morning and working and being like bright-eyed, but then as a creative, we just have so many like random, hours. So it's just interesting to be able to find the balance.
Right. I
But
read this book called The 5 a.m. Club,
okay.
and that book is amazing. It teaches you discipline, and it teaches you how when you wake up in the morning, you're able to accomplish more. And the crazy thing is I was already doing that, because I figured that was the best thing for me to do, especially the week that I'm working, because I don't want to waste that week completely and do nothing business or not check my mail or my email. So I had to find a way. And I figured that week I'm just going to sacrifice a little bit of sleep. I'll try to sleep early if I can, but then I'll be able to accomplish more. And after reading that book, I understand now why a lot of the successful people do that. So I do recommend that book. It's called The 5 a.m. Club.
5 a.m. Club. I will be taking a look at that. So this brings us to the conclusion of Boss Up Talk, and it was such a good conversation. Is there anything else that you feel would be a great piece of advice for up-and-coming entrepreneurs or up-and-coming doctors who are on this journey to success that you want to leave with our listeners?
So I always say, people always want the end result, and they want the end result to happen so quick when it's a journey. Just start moving forward. Take one step at a time. Don't stress yourself out, but every baby step add up to big steps. And then when you look back, you're going to see how far you've come. And that's with anything in life. Opening up a business, writing a book, anything you want to accomplish, you just have to start it and then do another step and another step, just a little bit at a time. And before you know it, you're going to be there.
Exactly. And they say it takes 10 years to become an overnight success. So there you go. Exactly. I'm like 10 years. Geez.
Yeah. But the time is going to go by anyway. Time is going to go by. So if that's what you want to do, go ahead and do it, because that time is still going to have to pass.
Exactly. Big facts. Exactly. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Ava, for joining me on today's episode. I really had a great time chatting with you. This was a really dope talk. So thank you, Dr. Ava, again. And T is signing out.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me. Bye.